Hello. In our company, I'm responsible for the development of partnerships, and today I want to share some of the experience we've accumulated in 5.5 years as a part of doing forensics and developing tools to detect covert patterns and money laundering and different fraudulent schemes. We have quite extensive experience because every month we have lots of different cases we review. We communicate with victims, we communicate with threat actors who are stealing and then laundering these amounts of money, and then also with law enforcement agencies who have to help citizens to get their assets back. But before I begin, I would like to introduce some just basic terms of reference for us to be on the same page and to have understanding of what are the key terms that I'm going to use in my presentation. In terms of blockchain, I think everybody knows what blockchain is all about, but it's not just a buzzword, you know. Blockchain is basically a very strong tool which have been used widely, and cryptocurrencies is only one area of application. Blockchain is a distributed ledger, and if information got into that, it cannot be deleted, cannot be altered, and this provides a huge advantage in terms of trust. You do not have to be apprehensive that somebody will change anything in this ledger. What are the three key aspects of blockchains? Number one is transparency. Any blockchain user can go online and see all the transactions of all the users. It's a principle number one. Secondly, it's immutability. If an information about a particular transaction entered in a blockchain, it's going to stay there forever. And thirdly, it's a decentralization. There is not just one center that would be responsible for storing this blockchain. There are a lot of participants, and they have a full copy of this particular block. So you can be convinced that tomorrow nothing will change in terms of your previous transactions. There are many blockchain projects. Bitcoin would be the most capitalized, the most known, and actually today Bitcoin capitalization as a coin is simply colossal. We're speaking about trillions of dollars. So many users are part of this process. But on top of Bitcoin, there are also many blockchain projects like Ethereum, for example, enables you to make very good and cool things due to smart contracts and automate things. There are also like Tron, Solana projects, and they are about very fast operations and anonymity, reliability, and about the cost of transactions, and coins like Monero and Zcash, which are mostly focused on being anonymous, and they are used also by the threat actors for laundering their dirty assets. So what is a cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency is basically a digital asset which is based on blockchain. And despite some dubious regulatory framework in many countries, in our country, cryptocurrencies are not banned. We can have it, we can send, receive, and store it. The only thing we cannot do is to use it as a means of payments, to pay for goods and services. But in terms of Russian legislation, this is considered to be your property. And there is a confirmation why I'm saying about that, and because oftentimes when people become victims of fraud, it seems to them that the law is not on their side and that they will not be able to prove that this is a real digital asset. Like if your car has been stolen, it's your property and you can go to court and try to return it using legislation. Whereas cryptocurrency is exactly the same type of a property. Now, let's talk into forensics. First, it's a crypto address. It's the same as your bank properties, but unlike your bank properties or account number, you cannot receive it when you're sending money. You can see only identifier, like a huge big identifier, which could be connected with a particular user, or if you see like in the Bitcoin, you can see the blockchain address. It is owned by the government of Germany. And I think like some time ago they confiscated some cryptocurrencies worth of 2.5 billion, and they've sold it about $60,000 per coin, and now Bitcoin is worth about $110,000. So they've lost 2.5 billions because of the exchange rate. Had they waited a little bit longer to sell the assets. But what is important here, it's a paradox of cryptocurrencies. Despite a crypto address, it could be anonymous, but all transactions on any blockchain address are transparent. They are seen by any user, and you just have to be able to read these data, which are in the open access as of today. But not all addresses are identical or the same. There is a certain division by types. We, as an analytical company developing solutions in this area, we classify blockchain addresses, and this division is very notional. You know, there could be different types from 20 to 100 types of addresses. The more you know them, the more you can fine-tune them for your particular tasks and your assignments. Let's move on to the last two themes, and basically, those are entities, essences, and clusters. Any blockchain address is just like a drop in the bucket. And any of you can create unlimited number of blockchain addresses, be it 20, 100, or a million. And what is important is to cluster those addresses into unified essences. What is an essence? It's basically a set of blockchain addresses which is owned either by one individual or by one organization. There is a notion as a cluster. A cluster is basically bulking up addresses by a certain event. Some time ago, like this year, there was the biggest hack of the Bybit exchange. About $1.4 billion have been stolen. And in this case, there are certain blockchain addresses which are owned by Bybit exchange, and these are those essences. There are a lot of those of blockchain addresses, and there are also blockchain addresses which attackers have created to launder money, and this address where the money was stolen from, and those addresses for money laundering. This is the cluster. And now let's move on to the next part. Well, what blockchain is all about? It's something that does not change. It's a mutable database which have been used proactively for cryptocurrencies, and basically you can analyze and you can read blockchain, you can do some investigations for your purposes, be it creating your tools or maybe for some financial transaction between the parties and so on. And the deeper we understand blockchain, the more opportunity it provides for using it. Now let's take a look at the scope and scales. In the world, we have tons and tons of people who are using blockchain. There are about 506 million people who are very proactive crypto users. In Russia, it is about 13 million. Out of them, 1 million on a monthly basis is using cryptocurrencies. And these blockchain addresses of the users from Russia, they are about 15 trillion Russian rubles are stored in them. Those are immense numbers, and actually, you cannot ignore these numbers, and the government, one way or another, is trying to regulate this market. Government is trying to understand how this can be used and how to collect taxes and how to prevent this technology from getting into bad actors' hands. And yeah, this is great, but how do these 13 million people begin to use cryptocurrencies? And talking to different users, including the banking segment, oftentimes I see that there is no full picture of how people come into this crypto, world. Basically, you do not need any special tools. There are a huge number of tools. Number one would be international exchanges like Bybit, MEX, and Gate, and so on. That provide any user with an opportunity through the special a P2P site to change your Russian rubles into crypto. How does it happen? You sign up at an exchange, then you upload your crypto. If you're making the first steps, you want to buy your crypto for rubles. You're choosing transaction, like what do you want to do, be it USDT and Bitcoin and so on. You create this transaction, and then this crypto It's being frozen by the exchange. You are transferring Russian rubles to those bank properties, and then after the exchange, user is saying that yes, I've got the rubles, then the exchange is giving you your money back. So now you're the owner of crypto. It's just one of the ways of how people begin to use crypto. Next would be crypto exchangers. Exchangers, they are plenty. There are different aggregators which are collecting information, and be it like a Best Change, for example. If you would go to Best Change, you will see about 500 or 600 crypto exchangers which are providing you different coins, from Bitcoin to very rare coins which you may have never heard of. The next one is different wallets, for example, Telegram. There's a built-in wallet. There's also a P2P site where you can buy crypto just like you are doing on a big centralized exchange. And also many other ways, like a small chats when you can unofficially buy directly from users. Well, but this is related to some risks, and if you will come to Moscow City, you can see so many ads about the crypto exchangers. There are so many Telegram chats where you can agree about exchanging your crypto for fiat and vice versa. Moving from Russian ruble and crypto, you can meet up with people. You come and you bring your bag of money, or vice versa. You're transferring your crypto and getting your bag of money, and you leave. What is happening near the ATMs in Moscow City? People come with big stacks of money, and probably it's about cryptocurrency transactions. And also another item is crypto ATMs, but crypto ATMs here in Russia, they are not widespread yet. They basically are not being used at the moment, and commissions are very high when you are trying to go into crypto using in crypto ATM. It's like from 3 to 10% of interest. And I think but in the US and the EU, you can see lots of those crypto ATMs which you can use the fiat currency and buy or sell your crypto. Moving on. Well, along with these very light and easy ways of entering into crypto space, another thing is that crypto is also being used by attackers and hackers. It's not just a theory. Basically, it's a quite big opportunity and a tool for them to legalize their criminal revenues for covert and opaque translations. There is a problem with my clicker. Just a second. Now, what do they do? Oftentimes, they need to finance different illegal activity, for example, to finance terrorism. And that's one avenue of using crypto, and they're using different anonymous blockchain projects like Monero and Zcash. And there is also a drug trade, like a darknet market, have been using crypto for quite a while to provide their users with the opportunity to settle for different illegal trades and services. And right here we have identified the criminal code of the Russian Federation, which identifies all these illegal activities. And when somebody's coming to us and say, hey, I was defrauded with crypto, our law enforcement is going to get involved in that. Yes, they will, because the Article 159 of the Criminal Code of Russia, it's a fraud. You've been defrauded, and this is why this classifies as the article of the Criminal Code of Russia. There are also, robbery, even though we're living in the 21st century and you are in the city of Moscow. Once in a while, even in the city of Moscow, there are cases of robbery when people come to exchange their rubles into crypto and vice versa. They come into office and just by brute force, the cash is being taken from them, or they are made under duress to transfer their crypto, and then people get lost. And oftentimes we hear these kind of changes once in a while. Well, these fraudulent schemes, they are also plenty, unfortunately. A while back, we decided to analyze these thousands of messages we get. We identified about 17 different schemes used by black black hackers. This could be different fake investment brokerage and consultants, which supposedly offering you very, very good investments. They've been using social engineering to be able to communicate with their victims, convincing them that it's all safe, it's all good, and mostly leveraging their greed. Like I said before, that in the world today there are about 560 million people, crypto users. Now this amount has grown by 35%. 35%. This is the base expansion of the crypto users base, and this year we'll see the huge growth dynamics in crypto. Those newbies who came into crypto, they've grown on the news like, hey, this is Bitcoin. It used to be 60K now per Bitcoin. Now it's 80K. Now it's 110K. And people get this like FOMO, fear of missing out, that I have to jump into space. And then this somebody shows up and saying that, you don't know what crypto or blockchain is all about. You don't know what kind of, coins you may be using. Let me grab your by the hand and lead you to ultimate success. They are leveraging people's ignorance, and sometimes, and very unfortunately, we are living in the time of the information fast food. We want to consume information fast. Just give me a crash course. I don't want to spend a couple of months of studying on my own. I want to be given a shortcut. But unfortunately, this kind of explanation is given by those threat actors. And people are using sometimes lots of money. And according to Central Bank of Russia, as of the beginning of this year, the con men have stolen about 6.9 billion Russian rubles worth of crypto, and lots of this money actually being transferred into crypto. It's now kind of mixed up, and oftentimes when we do our investigations, we are also communicating with those malefactors, and we can see that they just have this kind of industrial approach to it as a part of this certain criminal organization. There could be a whole bunch of people with different assigned roles, and they're defrauding people. And if you look at the whole list of the types of different fraud, the other people just laundering money, yet other people are collecting databases, and all these leaks you are hearing about on the internet, this is also a tool for them to cheat on people. What do they do next, those fraudsters? They've stolen money like in crypto, or have they stolen a certain money in fiat currencies, in our case in Russian rubles? If it was Russian rubles, this is what is happening. They are taking droppers banking cards. These are the cards assigned to third parties, transfer Russian rubles, and then like how the Russians are coming into crypto, in the same way they convert those Russian rubles from the droppers card into crypto, and then get lost. And oftentimes the enforcers having a challenge to investigate these kind of things. Why? Because again, no, we don't have enough practice, enough knowledge in crypto, and this is a very dynamically kind of evolving field. And for just a common user who sometimes you cannot even catch up with the speed of technology development. And the second thing is that there's not enough tools in the toolbox. And every employee of the law enforcement agencies, they have to have a certain toolbox to make it easier for them. And today we're going to talk about that. I'll show you what kind of tools we've been using in our forensic activities. What do these people do after crypto? They got crypto, they've stolen it, or converted it from the rubles. What they do dispersion. They're sending money to lots of different blockchain addresses. I said that this year we've had one of the biggest hacks when the Bybit exchange was hacked into. 1.4 billion have been stolen. They begin to disperse it across many addresses. At first, like it's 50 addresses, and then on and on and on. And right now, as a part of this cluster, you remember, basically blockchain addresses which are combined in the cluster of Bybit, there are about 20,000 of blockchain addresses. So those conmen, they've created 20,000 blockchain addresses, and they begin to run those transactions between them. Why? To make it difficult to investigate them. So when we talk about this kind of numbers, you cannot do this analysis with your regular means and tools. I will show you some standard standard solutions and professional solutions. And right after they were able to disperse this money, they're using some breaches. What is a breach in crypto? It is when, for example, you want to switch from one crypto in one blockchain into a different blockchain. For example, you have a Bitcoin and you want to exchange it onto TON or USDT or Tron or Ethereum, you name it. And there are special breaches which automatically can change one equivalent into a different equivalent. And all of this is hidden behind different smart contracts, which additionally makes analysis difficult. You can unwind it, you can understand it, but it takes time. So when we were involved in Bybit hack, we've seen that sometimes we're not that efficient. We understand that from point A to point B, money are gone, and then we know that through the blockchain breach, the money have been transferred into Bitcoin. And then this money are being sent like to yet another exchange. And we're not able to follow and catch up and even document it to send it to an exchange because there is a very small time like to be able to block this money on the account. Next are mixers. Mixers are special services which enable to mix it to increase anonymity. Different DeFi services, smart contracts, and exchangers without KYC procedures or identity verification. All of this is being used for money laundering, so that from the dirty crypto to move into fiat, and then fiat is very hard to find. If the card is, for example, have been registered with a dropper guy. Let's say you found a dropper guy who sold his card for like 30,000 rubles and given the right to use this card. Then law enforcement agencies, they know only this guy. He has no idea who he sold it to. He has no idea about the transaction. It's a huge problem for law enforcement agencies to be able to dig this up. And people say, how come we have exchanges which is doing identity verification and they're asking for your passport and email and a phone number? But in this case, there's also a certain problem because those accounts are being sold. They're also being assigned to droppers, they're being stolen and then used for all kinds of illegal activities. And on a separate way, there are also different exchanges in darknet. And they are very brazen. They are exchanging the dirtiest crypto. If an exchange will know that there's some money related to terrorism or drug trade have been stolen, of course the exchange will block this money. But in darknet, there are lots of blockchain services who are saying, yeah, we'll change your dirty crypto, no problem. They're simply taking the more interest for doing these kind of transactions. And what are we dealing with? What can we work with when we need to analyze a particular incident? The simplest and available tool or way would be blockchain observers. This would be just a regular website like Heatherscom and TronScan. Usually, for each blockchain, you have a unique observer. There are certain blockchain observers which help you to work with different blockchain networks. As a matter of fact, it's quite simple. You go to this website, you enter the blockchain address which you like, and you get absolutely all transactions for this address, be it in a table format, and this is cool. I mean, what's the problem? But why law enforcement, law agencies, they cannot do it? They do it, but they have some challenges. Let's say you have this list. What do you do next? You're saying that there is 1,000 or 100 transactions, even 20 transactions. You can dive into this rabbit hole forever. What do we do? Number one, we have to understand where this blockchain address, where do they get these native tokens? I mean, the tokens that they need to pay for gas, to pay for otherwise commission for a transaction. Question number one is, who gave this money to fuel this transaction? And after we've realized it, we move along, we're trying to understand. My clicker is jamming. We try to understand. Have they tried to exit money to centralized exchanges? Why centralized exchanges? Because this is the point where the de-anonymization of the user is happening. Like I see that a user has transferred money into Inditex. So this is an exchange, right? And if I'm in law enforcement or I'm a victim and I come to like police or whoever, I can say, ask him, can you please send an inquiry and ask information for what user a particular blockchain address has been created to identify them. And you'll say, well, a couple minutes ago I was saying that there are accounts which have been registered with the droppers. Why would you inquire this information? Actually, any action is generating lots of digital footprint. IP, entry logs, and every action which con people do, it's been registered. And sometimes those threat actors, they did everything right, but then VPN would fall off and people come from their own real IP. Oh, they caught themselves and they get out. In 30 seconds, they came back under a different IP. But the exchange fixed it, and then law enforcement during this IP, they're trying to understand who this IP was given to, and then they do their own forensics. Now, what do we do with that? Definitely in this table format, it's much easier because you download these transactions, address number 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then, like even in Excel table, you can analyze it. As you can see, some observers, they're even signing up certain addresses from exchanges. Not all of them, very few, but still it is something. It is something to be able to do in investigation. One drawback of Excel, it won't enable you to work with huge massives of data. You can upload like 700,000 lines, and your Excel will say goodbye. It's too much, It will be very slow, and then you won't be able to work with this. But you need more. You need to analyze more data, and in this case, you need some analysts to be involved, because any investigator would not be willing to dive deep into this 100,000 lines, because the system is overloaded. They simply do not have time for that, and it looks like it's being delegated to other professionals. It's going to take a lot of time. Like we've seen it, the way different agencies are communicating. It's a problem, and when victims come to us, we always ask them, guys, help. These are your money. You've lost the money. And it is in your best interest to ask and help investigator to find out the truth. So do some analytical work. You can do it on your own, or you can hire somebody like us or other similar companies. After we've understood, okay, these 1,000 lines is great, but can you make it simpler? Can you make it more visual? There are free or almost free services like Arkham Intelligence. It's a platform for visualizing communications interaction between blockchain addresses. This is something. Instead of just thousands of transactions between two addresses, you will see these points and connections. It's much easier to analyze information in this way. How does it go? You just specify the address you need, and then the system is Yep, and the system visualizes it for you. It visualizes communication between different blockchain addresses, and now you can see this is, what it looks like. It's better. It's not 700,000 lines, but still it's complicated. It is complicated because a lot of extra information, and you can say, yeah, I like, what about this thread and this thread, and you're digging into that. You're trying to understand to be able to see what was happening next. My clicker is giving me trouble today, and so you're opening a different tab, and you can follow, and you can go to a centralized exchange. So when you see like certain icon, it's a symbol like either it's a service, like a known service. In this case, with a red point, you can see the icon of the Binance. And if we had been saying that those stolen money would be sent, we can send an inquiry to Binance to identify for which blockchain user you guys have created this particular blockchain address. And point number 3, a professional solution. Like I said, there are certain amount of companies that are doing this professionally. They know how it works. And for example, we see some Beholder tool for visualizing these connections. And why it is different from Arkham? One key difference is to understand where the money went. Secondly, to understand where you can de-anonymize a user. And unlike those blockchain observers or Arkham platform, one key factor is markings. And this is what analytical company is all about. They're hunting data. They're hunting data to understand what service and what exchange doing what. We are doing the control, mystery shopping at different exchanges, using different heuristics. We're trying to analyze what blockchain addresses are owned by particular exchanges. Why? Because this kind of incident is happening. We want to know that if the money have migrated from blockchain E address to blockchain B address, the blockchain B address is owned by some exchanger, and they have information for forensics. So you type in the address and you see the graph, and then we can make a cluster out of it to combine by certain essences, and from the mysterious something you see the very simple graph, because the key assignment of the graph not to show up all the information but to aggregate the information and simplify it. Instead of interactions of 500 blockchain addresses, you can see basically by essences. Okay, these are addresses owned by exchanges. Cool. These are different users. Great.
Вот это непосредственно сервисы, вот это смарт-контракты, которые позволяют...
These are services, and these are smart contracts that enable you to swap some tokens for some other tokens that makes no sense to interact with those. So this way you can find nested or embedded elements, and this way you will know that such and such blockchain addresses are connected to those ones, so they must be operated by the same perp. So when we run our investigations, we can often discover a very long list of blockchain addresses established by the same perp. And this gives us,
Безусловно, можно смотреть на уровне транзакций, можно смотреть...
shall I say, scope of work. So we can also cluster it all, combine those things, see when specific blockchain addresses were active. All this can be used for behavioral analysis. And effectively, it all then goes into reports. So if you get duped, please remember this.
Очень четко должны обозначить, что произошло.
It is very important for you to be able to describe what exactly has happened. And please make sure that you write in mundane language that even a policeman will be able to understand. So what has happened? Provide screenshots that go to prove your point that you've been defrauded effectively. Also, try to run your own analysis of where your crypto has gone so that a policeman will understand that, okay, then I need to talk to Binance. Okay, you may be wondering if exchanges actually respond to police queries. They sometimes do. In fact, there are factors that drive the probability of such responses. So what are the objectives of investigation here? The first one is to learn where the money has gone. Now, if the money is in an exchange, the money can still be frozen. And all it takes is just sending a message to the exchange. We have had lots of cases like this. And I can tell you that, when the gun is still smoking, so to speak, and you jump into action, this is when you can actually maximize the probability of getting your money back. The first thing we do, send a message to the exchange. We say, money has been stolen. This is the proof. What usually happens is that money in the perp's account will be blocked for 48 hours. And then exchange will tell you, we'll only be talking to the police from now on. And you tell them, sure, absolutely. And then you get a kind of a writ from the police saying that you have applied to the police, and yes, they have accepted it, and then you send it to the exchange, and the exchange understands you mean business. Afterwards, the police or some other law enforcement entities will get in touch with the exchange. Because this way, the exchange will have the right to freeze the money and then, pursuant to a court order, release the money to either you or the original holder. In fact, you can freeze the money in the account, in the blockchain account or blockchain address of the perpetrator, as long as it's money there. It doesn't have to be your money. It could be some centralized token like USDT. But you do remember that USDT is operated and owned by Tether Limited, the US company. And in fact, for Russian law enforcement agencies today, it is pretty difficult to collaborate with American institutions, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. So, money can be frozen there, and then pursuant to court order, money can be, or tokens rather, can be reissued to you.
Просто транзитом проходят. Мы можем собрать очень
Now,
крупные цифровые следы.
even if the money is no longer there, you can still collect some important digital footprints, such as IP addresses. I love the following case.
Зачастую бывает аноним.
You know, I talk a lot to crypto fans, and they're big fans of anonymity. They say, this is my sovereign right. I don't want to be spied on. That's why I'm using those specialized services. And I always bring them the bad news. We have had so many cases indeed
Злоумышленники завели средства.
that the blockchain address used by, a particular perpetrator, for example,
No cookies.
belongs to a service, and this service says no KYC, no data collected, no cookies, no nothing. And then, law enforcement people ask us, what do we do? They don't even have an email, like they don't seem to have a legal entity, and I don't think there are legal entities in Russia.
Там есть Jabber, вон там.
And we tell them, well, they have mentioned their Jabber and Signal. Just get in touch with them, explain who you are. And you know what?
Сервис.
We do that.
Для сервиса это бизнес. Он зарабатывает на...
It's a business for these people. They make money exchanging money. They don't give a damn about your confidentiality. And if they realize that this particular law enforcement agency means business and threatens to, say, block their domain or maybe put them behind bars, they don't want that. So very often, crypto exchanges will disclose such data if they feel that the police means business.
Нужную информацию.
So in that particular case I'm sharing, the policeman I know was able to get the information that he requested. So please remember that digital footprints are precious. You can never have enough. Very often, crypto exchanges will be invoking lots of different services. And yes, we do the spraying, so to speak. Like we talk to everybody, and some companies will respond, others will not. Now, finally, I want to give you the structured information about the investigation algorithm. So we start by collecting initial information, primary information. No details are unnecessary. If you have been duped,
У вас появляются бумаги.
some sensible things you can do, for example, involve printing out your communications with the perps and having them notarized.
Со вторым своим фейковым аккаунтом. А вы нотариально заверили, как минимум.
If you have it notarized, the police will understand that, okay, you are serious. And, they won't be thinking that this is an exchange you're having with your second Telegram account. So next, you have to make sure, you have to indicate what happened. When you had this call from that particular number, when you sent money to exchange, and so on. Make life easier for the investigation.
Сделав запрос,
The investigator can actually get similar information by talking to a bank, but that requires extra movement, extra motion. It can easily take weeks or months. Do you want to wait? Probably not. If you wait for a week or even more,
злоумышленники каждую минуту
this money that has been defrauded from you will have been completely laundered by that time.
провести расследование без правоохранки. Нет.
Can you run an investigation without engaging the law enforcement agency? No way. Exchanges,
Как бы вы, какие бы убийства
DEXs will not talk to you. Even if you are very persuasive.
как наша, мы сделали
Even if you turn to an analytical company like ours and we do, this very professional report for you and we show the movement of your funds after your funds have been defrauded, no, they won't be talking to you. And they won't be asking you where your money is coming from. And also, please continue remembering that Russia does not criminalize dealing with crypto. You are allowed to exchange crypto, you're allowed to hold it.
потом через сотрудников правоохранительных органов промаркировать блокчейн-адреса злоумышленников. Тоже очень важный момент, чтобы
It makes a lot of sense for you to mark the blockchain addresses
в email-сервисах появляется
of the bad guys.
тот или иной блокчейн
The moment AML services start featuring specific new addresses, other exchanges will turn these people down. I'm not talking about darknet. Darknet is different for sure.
Дальше. В некоторых случаях используются переговоры со злоумышленником.
In some cases, you may want to negotiate with the bad guys. This can work.
10%. То есть злоумышленникам предлагается вернуть бабки,
So sometimes
10% они оставляют себе.
we agree that they return 90% of what they've stolen and 10% they keep.
Тем на самом деле
Some perps are in fact prepared to do that. And the more evidence you have collected, the more open they will be to talking. So you know what? We're all humans, bad guys included.
где-то VPN
So if they realize that you know their IP,
с его другими
or that they send money to an exchange which is affiliated with some other addresses that they have, and you have discovered that, they will be open to talking.
кому будет интересно, мы потом отдельно сможем обсудить.
If you're interested, please talk to me, because negotiating with these people without involving law enforcement agencies may create some extra risks for you.
Сложный длительный процесс, который длится, на
But also, please note that getting your money back
но это не
takes months. It can easily take years.
можно
But
заниматься
if your money has been stolen, I guess you will be motivated to have it back.
про
This is it for me.
то,
This is a slide about us and what we do.
много где рассказываем
We actually deliver lots of presentations. We talk a lot about cybercrime.
с точки зрения проведения расследований. Мы пытаемся
We have been helping lots of people run their investigations. And our most important message is that not everything is lost.
действовать. Ну и второй
It's just that you need to act fast, and it's better to be professional.
использовать профессиональные инструменты.
And our general recommendation to everybody is, if you're investing money that you care about, please invest time in learning more about the industry.
Два микрофона, они находятся позади основного
You
зала.
got two mics.
Есть вопросы, прошу подходить к микрофонам и задавать их.
If you have any questions, please use the mics. Hello.
Такой.
I have the following question.
Есть ли такие кейсы, где удавалось деанонимизировать, да,
Have there been cases where you were able to de-anonymize the recipient when Monero or Zcash were used?
В этом случае для нас я на
I see where you're coming from. These two are pretty difficult cases. I know one company that successfully investigated some Monero cases. If you're interested,
кейс
I suggest that you Google this case, where Chainalysis
свое внутреннее решение, которое как раз направлено
discussed an internal decision of their own,
очень любопытно.
focusing on de-anonymization of Monero transactions.
Есть кейсы
So try learning more about it. There was also a case in Japan, right,
нужного результата.
where the law enforcement agencies were able
Мы не умеем работать
to get this job done. We personally have not had any experience with anonymous cases like Monero Zcash. But then, I'm not really complaining. We got enough stuff in our labs in any case.
в текущий момент.
What's important to remember about anonymous coins
Меньше и меньше оставлять
is that the regulatory environment is shifting,
решений.
leaving
И плюс оно не очень удобно.
less and less space for anonymous coins. Moreover, anonymous coins are not really user-friendly. Have you ever used Monero? Not Monero.
Ставить решение. Нужно потом думать по поводу того, где
Well, you have to, decision making is difficult, and it's more difficult to find exchanges dealing with Monero.
я лично это.
It's not that they are very few, but the number is going down.
Мы, к примеру, работаем очень много с пользователями, которые стали
Also, we work a lot with users
Monero.
who have been defrauded, and you know what? Most of them have not been defrauded of Monero. Monero is sometimes used to fund terrorism, for example.
Таким образом финансировать подобную деятельность. Используются для каких-то очень хитрых схем. Но
Now, sometimes it's used for something really complex. But you know what? People who stole money from Bybit, they didn't use Monero for a very obvious reason. They stole a billion. You cannot really put a billion just like that into any blockchain.
Monero выводить в другую криптовалюту, и у тебя возникнут определенные...
And you know what? If you start converting like $100K in Monero to a different cryptocurrency, there will be questions asked.
Есть. Ну, попробуйте.
Well, there are DEXs, people will tell you. Try exchanging large amounts of Monero, say there.
Криптовалютных переводов, как в США и как в России вот сейчас вот пытаются нас сделать.
Can you please tell us more about the regulatory aspects of crypto transfers in Russia, United States? Well, the regulation is changing and progressing. Will that be a good answer?
Добрый день.
Thank you.
Можно вопросик? Я здесь.
I'm here.
Вот кейсы по скаму криптокошельков и криптообменников, когда массовые...
There have been cases when lots of people were scammed. I wonder if such cases ever get properly resolved. I'm thinking of Cryptonature.
Тяжело они доходят, на самом деле.
Well,
К большому сожалению,
success rate there is unfortunately pretty poor, and there are some systemic issues. First,
инструментов
you gotta be professional investigating those cases, and most law enforcement people do not have the competences or the tools.
кому-то обращаться. Вот эти кто-то,
So,
в случае мы,
they need to turn to somebody,
альтруисты, мы
and, well, they can be turning to companies like us, but we are no Mother Teresas, you know? We are a for-profit institution. We have been investing a lot of money in developing our products
и мы не можем
and in developing the skills of our talent. So obviously, we are not going to help them altruistically.
правоохранительным органам
So people who have been defrauded like this
хотим тебе помочь.
often have this dilemma. They turn to the police, and the police tell them, "We want to help you. We just don't know what to do." And then they turn to analysts, and analysts tell them, "Yeah, we can help you, and that costs you money." So they have the following dilemma. Some people just lose all their money. You know, some of the perps are really talented, and they will force you to take out loans.
Это тоже вариант.
So people will be searching for money.
Есть кейсы там, где
So there have been some large or high-profile cases where thousands have been defrauded of millions of dollars.
государства
Cases like this, interestingly enough, have not been much in the media.
должным образом не расследуются.
You know, the authorities have not been talking too much about it.
Проводили такие очень
The law
масштабные.
enforcement agencies have not.
Там себестоимости нашей, вот только себестоимость, я не беру сейчас про какую-то
And
коммерцию.
I can tell you that, you know, profit margins aside, you know, just the costs for us, and these are, in fact, person hours of our employees,
Желание. А давайте-ка попробуем.
would be like 1 million rubles just to investigate it. We had this idea, you know, we can, you know, with a high profile case like this, you know, we can sort of semi-altruistically do our research and then come to law enforcement agencies and tell them how good we are and make sure they grab the bad guys by the butt. But it's been pretty tough, and it's pretty expensive. I'm not trying to say that Russia is a particularly troubled country in this respect. It's in fact an international issue. We got this message from our client yesterday. So she's based in Germany, and she says, they've turned me down. The authorities told me they're not going to initiate court proceedings. And we tell her, like, how come? You've got all the proof. We helped you collect the proof. You can easily prove that crypto assets have been, you know, siphoned to those addresses. And she says, well, they simply don't want to do that. What can you do? Well, you can hire a lawyer. And lawyers cost you money again. So,
Я готов отстаивать свои
well,
гражданские
you can certainly do that. And you can demand that, you know, the authorities step in and do what, you know, they're charging you taxes for.
Ты его заставишь действовать дальше.
So you will certainly have them initiate proceedings and start an investigation. Does it mean they will be motivated? You know, maybe they feel hurt that you forced them into working.
Тут между
So you can't really force them to run fast, and they will be asking questions like, what kind of exchange is that? Is it MEX? Do they have an office in Russia? No, I'm sorry. No, that's an international request. I'll, you know, throw it over the fence to another department. And you're like, okay, when is it going to happen? I'll do it eventually.
другие дела. И передам.
I also need, you know, to take care of some other things. So
сложно.
You gotta strike the right balance here. That's what I'm trying to say. So there is no simple answer to your question, sir.
Расследуются, знаете, какие кейсы?
You know what kind of cases usually get investigated?
Следов злоумышленника, когда проанализированы схемы
Those where you have enough digital footprints, where you have already analyzed how the money laundering is happening, when also
злоумышленником, ну,
a case has already been brought against. And then
Значит, дружок, ситуация такая. Вот то, что я на тебя накопал.
you get in touch with the perps and you tell them, you know what, this is all that I have already found on you,
Это раз момент.
and I am aboard. I'll make sure I see it to fruition. So you either get my money back
Часть средств
or
человек
you will regret it.
спрятал
So there have been many cases like this.
контракт.
So we had this case where a person could actually
$15 000, которые на тот момент времени
hid money in a smart contract.
не
So
вернули.
the perps did that, and we were able to identify which smart contract they put it in, and we were able to pull the money out of the smart contract before the perp re-hid it.
Возбужденное уголовное дело.
So I've mentioned negotiating with the perps already. So imagine that indeed you do have
Вернули 90%.
criminal investigation running. Criminal investigation is not a door you can easily close. So if you then come to, an amicable agreement with the perp where they return 90%, you still need to take care of the criminal case.
Говорили,
Thank you.
потерянные суммы стоят вообще
What is the threshold of materiality?
точка, где я просто потрачу больше, и вот смысл мне вот эта сумма вернется, то есть...
Like, what's the point of me trying to sort of do it all if it costs so much? Let me give you the following case. We had a person turn to us who had $50 stolen from him. I asked him, "Are you serious? Are you really inviting us to help you?" And he tells us, "It's a matter of principle for me." And that was like 3 years ago. He spent about $1,500 paying for our services, but we found the guy, and he was very happy. So that was a matter of him deriving moral satisfaction. So the $50 itself obviously meant nothing to him, and he was prepared to pay for this, very warm realization that he
За это готовы преследовать. А
is not the person to screw, so to speak. He cannot be screwed easily. Let's put it like this.
если у вас украли, скажем так,
Unfortunately,
$1000, чаще
if it's below $5,000 that you have lost,
делать это самостоятельно, провести расследование.
in most cases, the best thing you can do is run your own research and then talk to the police.
Что вы максимально усложните.
Now, you can derive some satisfaction from the realization that, by telling the exchanges and the police about specific addresses, you will make the bad guys' lives difficult. And in fact,
Хочется пойти
the more evidence you provide, the higher is the probability that eventually they will make a mistake. And we're all humans. Bad guys make mistakes as well.
$150-200 стоит в рублевом эквиваленте по курсу на день оплаты. Если мы говорим о полноценном расследовании, это от...
And a lightweight kind of investigation will cost you like $200.
и так далее. Поэтому я скажу так, чаще,
Something more thorough will start about 100,000 rubles.
которые потеряли,
I can tell you that people usually call us in if they have lost at least $30,000.
и миллионы, и
We have had cases where people had $1 million or $5 million defrauded.
юристы, адвокаты, это все...
In cases like this, paying a couple $1,000s for the lawyers and the analysts,
весьма значимая сумма.
that's peanuts. To most people, myself included, $1 million is good enough. That will buy you a nice flat in Moscow.
Пожалуйста, к микрофону. А он позади вас, можете пройти и...
Mike's over there.
Спасибо за выступление. Единственное, поправлю,
Thank you very much.
к США никакого отношения
The other limited, in fact, has got nothing to do with the United States. That Limited was initially registered in BVI and is now registered in El Salvador.
Вы с точки зрения, где
Let me
зарегистрировано,
put it like this.
это один момент, а где, собственно,
It's one thing where they are incorporated,
сказать, что она не из США.
but, their business interests are in the United States. Are you trying to counter that? From a purely legal perspective, that's inconsequential. Okay, tell me where Binance is incorporated.
Сингапур, по-моему, нет?
У них
Singapore?
большое количество юридических лиц.
They do have lots and lots of legal entities around the world for different jurisdictions in different regions.
Вы можете обратиться
So the big question is, which kind of jurisdictions will be talking to you and which won't?
все юрлица.
I'm not trying to make, a blanket statement here
Который
about all the legal entities of Tether.
Вы можете добиться нужного вам результата или нет?
The big question I have is whether you can have the defrauded money blocked or not.
Органы Российской
Being a citizen of the Russian Federation and working through the law enforcement agencies of the Russian Federation, you will be handicapped. I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying it's difficult. Now, if I'm wrong about them having or not having a legal entity in the United States, well, okay, I'm prepared to face that. I have two short questions.
что если те же
You have mentioned
средства условного Байбита
that if defrauded money from, say, Bybit goes through a DEX,
как меньше не станет. Интересно, почему?
the perpetrators will not have fewer issues. I'm wondering why. Because usually DEXs
Анализируется и трейсится системами, поэтому
do not do automatic tracing or analysis. So exchanges will just see that it's a DEX and they won't really know that this is money
безусловно,
stolen from Bybit unless they are using some encryption solutions.
легко прочитать.
Well, there are some DEXs running on smart contracts which are easy to read. So this way you'll see that, okay, here money goes from Bitcoin to Tron, then we should be analyzing Tron. But some are, more sophisticated,
Но тем не менее,
where analysis will be more difficult.
высококвалифицированного специалиста зачастую
If you
анализировать, куда средства ушли.
put a good expert on that, you will be able to analyze where money has gone.
В свое время
In the case of a Bybit hack, I really don't like how media talked about it. Like, 1 billion plus has been laundered.
они просто
As professionals, we are asking this question like, how come they're saying it's laundered? They've just gone,
следишь за бабками,
through Tor chain,
поэтому
from Bitcoin to Ether, right? Or the other way around. It's just making the whole analysis process a bit more difficult. It's making the process of analysis longer, and time is of essence for sure.
знаете за что?
What? Do you know why I really hate the perps?
В воскресенье, когда
They usually do the laundering on Saturday and Sunday when I want to spend the time with my family. And these bastards do their laundering on the weekends. Because they know something. They know that law enforcement agencies also tend to have their days off.
там попадается
Well, we have to spring into action. And yes, sometimes we have cases involving DEXs. And yes, sometimes there will be like
процедуры.
crypto exchanges without any KYC processes in place, but this is not making it impossible. Okay, they will be able to launder something for sure.
закрылась, которая такие бриджи. И последний вопрос.
So I'm thinking of a particular exchange that did a lot of bridging like this, but they, got shuttered down.
Все, с кем мы работаем, все, кому мы проводим данные, здесь
We do work with a bunch of exchanges, so when we are running our investigation and discovering some fraudulent addresses, we will inform everybody we know. It is very important, when you are running your investigation to inform as many providers as you can. The better markup you do, the lower will be the probability that they will successfully launder this money. Now, I'm not going to name specific exchanges for you, and I hope you understand why. It is actually a very bad idea to disclose this information. Not a single AML provider is going to name specific crypto exchanges, because that way,
перед тем,
fraudsters
обменник, если
will actually be checking a specific provider with the AML tool. And when they see the green light, they will proceed with their transaction. Thank you, Vladimir.